White Sox podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app today and use promo code CHGO and you sign up. Welcome in to Studio A of our CHGO offices here in the West Loop of Chicago. I'm Sean Anderson, the host of the CHGO White Sox podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_W_Anderson. Alongside me is the full CHGO White Sox crew. Got Vinnie Duber. Follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Duber. He's our CHGO White Sox beat writer. Has a brand new post up at allchgo.com with more Justin Jerschley comments following off of our little Colson Montgomery talk yesterday. A little Oscar Colas love in there as well. And the man in the middle is Herb Lawrence. Hello. You can follow him on Twitter at Ecknerwall23. He's our CHGO community leader. Being produced today by Kevin Wells. What's up, Kevin?
What's going on, guys? Glad to be back.
Are you talking into the mic in front of your face or the mic that's around your face?
The gaming headset mic.
Okay, it looks like you have two mics in front of your face.
Yeah, I don't know. This one's back here now, but the gaming headset's a little bit cleaner. Sounds a little bit better quality on the recording.
Looks like a power play with the two mics. Appreciate Jordan Gilmore saying the best Sox podcast. We try to do our best. We're continuing our player previews, and I do apologize to the Romy Hive. We did have one person in specifically that was upset that we waited 55 minutes to get into our Romy Gonzalez preview, and then I think we only talked about him for 5 minutes. That's on me.
That's not much of a hive. That's a person.
Okay, the queen. the hive's developing.
Gotcha.
Shout out to, I think it was Matt Weiss, who made that comment specifically. It's on me. I scheduled the rundown, the podcast. I lead the direction. I went to it too late.
It's on Romy for not being a better player. Now, if he's a better player next year when we have our preview, I guarantee he'll have more than 5 minutes.
Well, I just don't want to dedicate too much time to him because I don't know if he's going to win the job. I think that was the thing that I think we didn't hammer home enough is if Romy Gonzalez has a bad spring training, and yes, he had a 2020 season in the minor leagues at one point, but if he has a bad spring training, it's possible that if Lenin Sosa with a good spring training impresses enough folks and he gets that job. It could be Hanser Alberto, who's a former major leaguer who impresses, has a spring training, knows what the work is like to prepare for that, and comes out and impresses. Could be Eric Gonzalez. Same thing. Same reasons. He's got some interesting outlying exit velocity stuff on StatCast. Ooh, Eric Gonzalez.
Oh, boy.
Could I interest you?
I'm good.
But I don't know if it's guaranteed that Romy Gonzalez, even though he's in the White Sox YouTube page, heavily frequently featured with Mike Tozar in his backyard, I don't know if he's guaranteed for that job.
I don't think he is, but I'm sure he's going to do his damnedest to win that job outright. And you forgot the legend, of course, Yeah, what ridiculous, Sean. Come on now. He could start at second base. He started a couple playoff games at second base, so the legend's still out there. But I would put my money on Romy Gonzalez starting. That's all we've been hearing. That's all the pictures we've been seeing from their previews on their websites, on their Twitter feed. They've been featuring Romy Gonzalez prominently, and working with Mike Tozar and Castro down there in Miami might be a thing, but I think they're telling us, hey, it's Oscar Colas, it's Romy Gonzalez.
What you've yet to mention, Sean, is that it could be someone who currently is not employed by the Chicago White Sox as well.
Could be the field.
Man, you listed over all those guys that are the candidates right now, and no offense to any of them, they could have a monster spring and they could have a monster year. You gotta state that possibility exists, but does not seem like a very high bar to clear to quote unquote impress or do enough to win that job right now. But we'll see how it plays out. It could be one of the big storylines of the spring. We'll see.
I mean, right now, I think the bigger storyline would be fifth starter. Just what happens with that entire situation. I think that's probably the biggest storyline for the Sox. I mean,
in terms of roster spots, maybe, sure, but I think the biggest storyline is Pedro Grifol and what the new coaching staff has done this offseason to get these guys back to where they were supposed to be after a very disappointing year last year.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's putting a little bit too much into managers. I mean, we've always talked about how much managers don't matter. I think that...
I don't disagree with you, but we've seen where the White Sox have put their priorities this winter. Mm-hmm. Their biggest move this winter, which is strange to say considering one of the moves they made was the biggest free agent signing they've ever made from a money standpoint. Their biggest move was to bring in a new coaching staff to get a core of players, an entire team full of players back up from falling down last year. I mean, we're gonna talk about one guy today, and Tim Anderson, but there's a whole list of guys who had abysmal seasons last year, and instead of doing big change, which there were a few, a significant number of fans wanted to see, not necessarily blow it all up, but, make a hard trade and bring in new starters and new blood all over the place, the White Sox said, no, we believe in this core, and the way we're going to get that core back to where we think they should be right now is by bringing in a new manager and a new coaching staff to get them there.
Well, and funnily enough, is that even a word, funnily?
Sure.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I can make it up. It's a podcast. Podcasts are made up. I mean, this wasn't a thing back in 2000, right? I mean, the iPod invented podcasts.
Probably
right?
not on YouTube.
But like with the whole new manager stuff and that being their biggest move, as you said, like the guy that we're talking about today, Tim Anderson, doesn't really seem to be, getting too much help from the White Sox organization this offseason. I'm going to go into what he's been doing, but like it doesn't seem like, we see all the videos of Luis Robert, Oscar Colas, and obviously that's them being down in Florida.
Those guys live by the coaching staff. Yeah,
absolutely. But like, Ethan Katz is making house calls to Marietta, Georgia, or wherever. Not Marietta. I think that's where Swanson's from, Milton, to go see Dylan Cease. Like, I don't know if that is their biggest move. I would still say it's Benintendi because I think the talent is what wins at the end of the day. And the fact that you went out and spent a franchise record, I would say that's a bigger move than Pedro. And along the same lines, I thought Clevenger was a bigger move. And that's why I would say that that's the biggest storyline going into spring training is because, you had two moves basically this offseason, and one is now completely backfired in your face.
You're talking, though, about what you think.
Yeah, no, I'm
talking
my
about
opinion.
what the White Sox think.
Okay.
I think you can tell where they put their eggs, right? I mean, we've been talking all year, the volume of moves that we expected on the player acquisition side was not there necessarily. They went ahead and decided we're going to go with internal guys at second base and right field, at least to this point, if there's nothing more to come over the course of the spring. They put their eggs in the basket of the roster that already existed for the very much the most part. And there was so much that needed to get better from the end of last year till now, and certainly till opening day. And what did they do to fix what was wrong? They went out and they hired a coaching staff that they think is going to fix these guys. And maybe these guys don't need to be fixed. Maybe they just all had terrible seasons at the same time, and it's a ridiculous coincidence.
Health is most important.
But I think what the White Sox think is, hey, that core of players is still the guys that can get it done. But if we're going to make the giant improvement that they obviously needed to make from early October to late March, it's not going to come via just adding one guy in left field or one guy at the back end of the starting rotation. It's going to have to come from the new infrastructure that they've put in place in terms of the coaching staff to get that team, to get these players back to where they need to be, because they didn't go out and get a new shortstop, even though Tim Anderson had a down year. They didn't go out and get a new catcher because Yasmani Grandal had a bad year, or a new third baseman because Yohan Moncada had a bad year. All those guys are still there, and they are going to be extraordinarily counted on to get this team where everybody thinks that it should be. How are those guys going to get back to where they are supposed to be? The White Sox say it's by having this new coaching staff.
And I'm thinking, like Vinnie is, they're not too far. They think they're not too far from competing with the same core that they had last year. That's why the quiet confidence. That's why you only go out and get the players that they got. And usually when you hear White Sox in the offseason, you hear they finished second place for XYZ player. They finished second place for this other player. I think they targeted the players they wanted, and they actually got the players that they wanted. And you could say, Benintendi or Clevenger is not satisfactory to you. That's fine. That's a different story. The story I'm telling, and I know people got mad at me when I said that the White Sox offseason isn't as bad as it is perceived. I think they had a plan. They executed their plan, and now they're happy with their plan, and they're going to let this go. As we discuss in all these previews, every one of these players, we discussed already with Andrew Vaughn, injury, 2022, which is bad for everybody. We're going to discuss Tim, injuries, 2022, which is bad for everybody. Tomorrow, Yohan Moncada, injuries, 2022, which is bad for everybody. That's what they're thinking. They're thinking, this was just a fluke season. We don't need to fix a lot of things. I used the analogy before, the Roadrunner and the Coyote. They don't want to change too many things like the Coyote did. He changed his whole plan He was this close away from getting the goddamn Roadrunner, but he's like, oh, I'm going to change everything up, even though I was this close. All I need to do is tweak a little bit thing, and that fucking Roadrunner's dead. Sorry, guys. And so that's what the White Sox did. They just tweaked it a little bit with Andrew Benintendi getting a top-notch left fielder. Top-notch is a little far. A good, above-average left fielder that actually plays left field, and Oscar Colas they believe in to the hilt. And I'm sure they believe in Romy Gonzalez, but they don't believe that Romy Gonzalez is going to be the everyday second baseman right now. That's a competition.
He can be a contributor.
Exactly. Colas, they're giving him the job. I guarantee, even if he does have a mediocre spring training, I think he's still the right fielder no matter what.
He's still on the opening day roster.
Yeah.
I mean, you might see more Gavin Sheets than you would expect at the moment, but I think he would have to struggle in order to go back to AAA. I think you're right. That's the feeling. That's the feeling I'm getting. It's not based on anything.
I don't know. I think if he doesn't win the job, I think it would be smart to just leave him at AAA because let him work and get as many reps as possible.
But you can still make the roster without winning the job. Maybe there is no the job. Maybe it's all right. We're going to play a few times a week, and we're going to play Gavin a few times a week, and apparently Eloy's going to go out there a few times a week. So maybe it's timeshare. And again, that's not ideal. You would think that they would have gone out this offseason and more emphatically addressed right field, and maybe they didn't have to. Maybe Oscar Colas does have that awesome spring, and he does win the job, and this is all just speculation and a discussion from the past by the time we get to March. But, I think that there are a few situations in the ways this can play out, and one of them is just, you're right, Herb, just he's one of the right fielders, not necessarily the right fielder.
Even with Vaughn seemingly winning and having the DH job in 2021, and then Eloy Jimenez opening up more opportunities, Vaughn only played 16 of the 25 games in April of 2021 for the Sox. And I think that was one of my frustrations, too, was like, I thought he was going to play a lot more than that. And I think
the White Sox thought that too, and then Eloy went and got hurt.
No. I thought Vaughn was going to be featured more, and then 16 out of the 25 games, especially with Eloy being injured. I'm saying I to the Colas point,
that was a week. It was like a week before the season started. I'm not sure they knew he was ready to do that all the time yet.
Yes, and I was just saying to your Colas point, Colas can make the roster just like Vaughn made the roster, and still be a large part of this season, just like Vaughn was in 2021. Maybe he doesn't have to. But I think too, if they think Gavin Sheets is a better option in April in right field, then leave Colas in AAA, so that way he gets as many reps as possible. Make him play every day in right field, and then hopefully he can make those adjustments against right-handers and left-handers. We saw the video that the White Sox put out today or yesterday on their YouTube where they're hitting in Mike Tozar's backyard. It's Romy Gonzalez and Oscar Colas, and Colas says, I have to be more selective, and that's what I'm working on, and that's something we've talked about this entire year is his biggest weakness. I think he had a 38% chase rate in the minor leagues last year, even though the numbers look good. Maybe he needs to go and work on that and prove that, and he'll be a May call-up. But, again, I think that is if he has a bad spring training. You brought up Leary.
Yeah.
I mean, why?
You want to give me a heart attack? He's literally on the team, and I keep on bringing the point up. You guys keep on saying, yes, his perfect position is a fifth infielder, but he continues to start playoff games. He's only missed one playoff game in the last, 3 years. So I know why we're counting him out, because the guy, to us, is not a good player. And, yes, when he plays a lot, he gets exposed. But the White Sox have been so injured that Leary Garcia has to play a lot. And then, once Tony got away, Miguel was like, yeah, I'm good on Leary Garcia. And he was hurt, too, a little bit in that second half, like any White Sox.
How many, if I asked you how many, where did Leary play more last year? Was it the infield or the outfield?
The outfield.
You'd say outfield?
I would say outfield.
You got an answer?
I would say the infield.
The infield. 28 times in the outfield last year, 72 in the infield. Yes. 47 games at second base, 45 of them starts, almost 400 innings at second base for Leary Garcia.
Well, remember
year.
how terrible a start Josh Harrison got off to. Mm-hmm. I mean, Josh Harrison over the back half of the season was fine. Over the front half of the season, or at least the first couple of months, he was just abysmal from a production standpoint.
Well, and then, too, I think it was the KC game August 9th when Leary ended up tweaking his knee during that game in an at-bat, and then he just, and that was late August, and then we just kind of see his playing time drop off once Tony leaves and Miguel takes over. It didn't really seem like Leary ever recovered from playing.
He was banged up all year. Yeah.
Right. So I do wonder, too, does that make him less reliable to play the infield? I mean, I don't know what his legs are like coming into this year. Does it make it easier or harder to play the outfield? I do wonder what's going to be Leary's position. Do you think he plays more at second or short? Or a second do you think Leary plays more at the infield or outfield?
Infield, it's more, question mark in the infield right there with the multiple injuries in the left side of the infield with Moncada and Tim Anderson, their history, and then the uncertainty at second base. I'm sure a veteran will see Leury Garcia and say, you know what? Leary can give me a quality effort at second base. Maybe the bat won't be anything spectacular, but if Romy Gonzalez and or Lenny Sosa or Hander Alberto don't light it up initially, just like Josh Harrison didn't, Leary's a solid guy to go to sparingly. The problem is when you're starting him for 400 innings, then you see the real Leury Garcia. He's really good when you have him in the spots where he can be good for the team, like pinch hitting, base running, fielding. Things like that, he's good, especially on the infield. The outfield defense, not too great for me.
It's been forever, though, since we've seen Leary able to play that kind of position. I mean, I feel like at the end of every season, for as long as you can remember almost, it's been Rick Hahn saying, well, Leary would be, is great, obviously best suited for the position you described, for that utility role, and yet when was the last time he was actually able to play that kind of a role? Because of the injuries that have happened, be they huge like they have been the last 2 years in 21 and 22, or even just, regular, like, when Tim Anderson rolls his ankle at Fenway Park or something like that, Yoan Moncada is going through something and is on the IL, even just for a kind of normal amount of time, if you want to put normal in quotes, it seems like Leary is constantly being shoved in to a role that he has not been best suited for, and that is kind of probably why the results are what they are, and B, why the fan opinion is what it is, because of those results, because of, you can go down the line.
He should, I mean, we know that he's going to be on the Hall of Fame ballot whenever he retires already, but I think this is truly remarkable looking at this way that the outfield and infield has been split up for Leary. So 140 games he played in 2019, and he had most of those appearances in the outfield. I believe only 22 appearances in the infield in 2019. Then in 2021, another full season, it was kind of split. 86 appearances in the outfield, 66 appearances in the infield. And then last year, obviously, the drastic shift of 72 to 28 infield to outfield. So basically, he's gone from 2019, largely an outfielder, 2022, 2021, mostly a utility guy playing infield and outfield at a basically even level, and then last year being mostly an infielder. So I mean, he is just been thrown around every single part of the time.
Well, and starting, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's the thing. It's forced to start at all of those places on a regular basis. I mean, we remember back to when Tony La Russa told me he hated me because I called Leary a utility player. I mean, listen, that's what Leary is. He's a utility player, but Tony's point was that he's a starter that plays everywhere. That is sadly what has been true, right? I mean, it's not any fault of Leary's. It's that he has been pressed into that role. Yeah, he has moved all over the diamond, but he's been starting in those positions where he should be a reserve, a bench player who can come off and like you said, Herb, give you what you need in very specific situations.
The man that hated you, quote unquote hated
quote
you,
unquote hated,
and not actually hated you, who thought he was a starter. Once he left, that starter only started 4 games. So I don't know. I'm just saying that I don't know.
You're right.
I think that man had a very high opinion of Leary Garcia, possibly a little bit too high.
Other folks have had a similarly high opinion. Ricky Renneria loved Leary Garcia.
And I love Ricky Renneria. I'm a Ricky guy. You guys ever watch Ink Master?
No.
Is this a show about squid?
No, it's a Spike TV show.
Oh,
it's about
Spike TV still a thing?
Well, it's a Paramount. I forget. We wanted to watch a movie.
So this has nothing to do with squid.
It's about tattoos.
Okay.
Tattoo competition, basically.
Gotcha.
And I was gonna just. I feel like Leary's a legend. I'm not going to make it, though.
Are you going to put a tattoo on yourself of Larry the
I don't know.
Legend?
I mean, we shaved our heads. I don't know. Should we?
No.
Hair grows back, Sean.
He might be a Hall of Famer. Let's take a quick
He's
break
not a Hall of Famer at his house.
before I do something stupid. We got to let you know about FOCO. Chicago, you've already got the best coverage for your favorite team, so get fitted in the best sports gear around. FOCO has you covered from Soldier Field to the living room, north or south side. Soldier Field to the front room, north or south side, with hoodies, slippers, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. Get decked out like DeMar with apparel from the leaders in sports merch and collectibles. FOCO, that's FOCO. If you're looking for the perfect gift for the football fan in your life, FOCO's got you covered with hoodies to fight that Lake Michigan breeze. So check out FOCO.com or check the link in the description below. For all non-presale items, use the promo code CHGO for 10% off. Also got to let you know about Game Time. I don't know. I can't play favorites, but they're just. I feel like we get so many people being like, Game Time, Game Time, Game Time, Game Time.
We do get a lot of comments about Game Time.
Our guy Marcos always popping in, being like, "Hey guys, great weekend. You know, I spent it using my weekend going somewhere with Game Time."
Went last night to the game via Game Time.
There you go with Rick Camp. How's my man?
Rick Camp's awesome. He's always awesome
in the biz.
And the Bulls won by a big time because the Spurs are terrible. Apparently, I can't believe that Pop's still there. It's a terrible outfit out there.
Well, they got nobody, but I think they're tanking. I mean, that's the thing. So
for that Victor, whatever. Change your name.
Wembanyama.
Thank
That
you.
guy. Thank you, Kevin.
This is a baseball podcast. I don't need to say that last name. Game Time is the hottest new ticketing site that makes it easier than ever to score the best deals on the tickets to sports, concerts, and shows. If you ever dreamed of sitting in a seat you never thought you could, 50-yard line, courtside, behind home plate, floor seats at a concert, it is possible with the Game Time app. The biggest last-minute price drops can be found on the seats you never thought you could buy. You won't find a better deal this season on tickets to Bulls or Blackhawks tickets. You could be like Herb, checking out the Bulls. You could be like our guy Marcos, who I think saw Alexander Ovechkin score his 800th goal at the UC when the Bulls and when the Blackhawks and the Capitals faced off. The Bulls aren't going to be here for a while. Next game at home is going to be on the 13th, but I think the Blackhawks are in town after the All-Star break. They play today against the Ducks at 7:30. So check out Game Time. If you love CHGO, then you love Game Time. The best way to support us is by buying your tickets to the link in the description. Join our 15 million people who have downloaded the Game Time app and score the best seats to all your favorite events. We do have a super chat from our guy
Stefan Bardo.
Saying his Clevenger jersey just came in. Hopefully that's not true.
I mean, he has it. You can buy a Clevenger jersey. He probably bought it a long time ago.
Can you?
Before the old allegations came out.
Did they ever even announce his jersey number?
I think he's
I
think he is. I think he's still the same
52. All right, best of luck with that. I mean, who's a 52 you can think of?
Jose Contreras was
Khalil
he?
Mack.
Jose Contreras. Okay, clear. You can make a White Sox Khalil Mack jersey.
could, yeah.
That's pretty sick.
I think Jose Contreras was.
There's no M's, so you can't flip, or W's, so you can't flip.
If you're good at sewing, you take off the 52, you flip it around and make it a 25.
Yeah, Contreras.
There you go.
Make it a Jim Thome jersey.
And or Vaughn.
Yeah.
In the V in the Clevenger.
Or
There you
Joe
go.
Borchard.
Or Joe Borchard. Yeah. There you go. Now the Connor's coming out in you.
Don't make me Google famous 25s.
Coming through. Yeah. Where's your Brett Myers 39? Yeah. Again, the Connor Smith just being able to pull off all those names and numbers.
Bringing back bad memories.
Yeah. Let's go to the Tim Anderson talk now. So let's flash his 2022 stats. I think most people know that 2022 was just an awful year for the White Sox all around. No different for Tim Anderson. He was an American League starting shortstop. I keep feeling like that was forgotten about. He was ranked 9th on MLB Network's top 10 shortstops at the end of the year rankings. What you pointing at?
Well, how about that? He was an above-average offensive player.
He was.
Yeah,
Which
he was.
I probably would not have guessed, to be quite honest with you. That on-base percentage, very nice.
Yeah, 339 on base percentage, an average of 301. I feel like the average helps the on base percentage a little bit there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would. Yeah, usually that's the case
That's
with
Tim,
TA.
Yeah. Oh, the walk rate of 4. Oh, that makes sense. But weighted runs created plus of 110, an F4 or 4.
A 4.
What is it good for? John Garland was 52 for a bit there. His 4 was 2, so that is an average major league season. But 351 plate appearances, 6 home runs, 25 RBIs, 50 runs, 13 stolen bases. It was a really successful year for the Sox on the bags. But Tim Anderson, I think the biggest thing that sticks out there, again, is 351 plate appearances. And the one thing that stuck out to me, we did the Steamer 600 projections that I did not bring back, thankfully.
Yeah,
I won't get mocked at.
Yeah.
Tim Anderson has had 600 plate appearances in 2 seasons, 2018 and 2017. So it's been a very long time since he had 600-plus plate appearances.
Injuries.
Injuries have plagued him, and it plagued him in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was an end-of-the-year injury, obviously, for Tim, but he had that. He had some stuff in the middle of the year, too, more along the lines of a regular baseball thing. But the last few seasons really have been very injury-heavy for Tim. It was a central storyline in 2021 when he got injured in about August, I want to say.
The Rays series?
Yeah, in that Rays series where, he had the big game-winning hit, and then the next day he was off there or something like that.
And that was revenge for Kevin Cash not starting him, right? Or playing him at all in the All-Star game?
Yeah. But yeah, seriously, I mean, this is a guy who has proven himself, Herb, you say it all the time, to be the engine of this team, the most important player in the lineup, sitting up there at the top with what he does on the field, what he does off the field, or at least outside the lines, in terms of firing up the dugout and being a leader with this group, as well as kind of the face of the franchise. They slapped his words on all the marketing stuff. So, listen, Tim Anderson had a tough year last year, but the injuries have piled up over the last few years. If he can stay healthy, boy, we should just get a drop of that, Kevin, that we can play every single time we talk about any one of these players. If he can stay healthy, obviously the White Sox are going to be in a much better place, and he should be in a much better place than he was last year. Tim Anderson is Tim Anderson, and you brought it up, Sean. We haven't seen him working with the new coaching staff. What's going on there? We talk about new voices coming in and giving these guys some pointers to fix things that they haven't been doing very well. Tim Anderson doesn't really need fixing. He just needs to do his thing. I think, you'll argue that's fine, but I think when Tim Anderson is on, he knows how to stay on. You just keep slapping that ball to right field, and you're going to be in prime scoring position or driving in runs for on a very regular basis. Again, he's the guy at the top. I think if you say who's the most important hitter in the White Sox lineup this year, even if Jose Abreu was still here, I would say Tim Anderson, especially because Jose Abreu is gone. Tim Anderson is the answer to that question even more so.
Yeah, that was my one question, was role on the 2023 team, unless you got more on 2022. What is the role? Is it what Vinnie said?
I get more on 2022 and what went wrong and what he can improve. Like the offensive numbers, as Vinnie said, they're there. They're solid. And I think a full season there, he can improve all the rest of the stuff. The on base for a starting guy who's the leadoff hitter, to me, is a little low. If you're not going to walk, that's got to be up there when he was winning batting titles, 335 slug or average, and then almost 360 on base. His walk percentage last year and the year before, 4%. I'm not asking for a lot. I'm just asking for a little bit more selectivity. As we were talking the other day about Andrew Vaughn, he's too passive, especially balls in the zone. Tim is way over swinging.
But that's how Tim became Tim.
That's how he gets down, but it's 80% to 75 is the normal. I don't even need him to go from where he's at 79% of swinging balls at the heart of the zone to league average. Just take it down a tick. Take it down a tick on each one. He overswings way too many times, but for his overswinging, he doesn't strike out a lot. So if you're going to be swinging this much, zone in a pitch, zone in a spot. As Vinny says, they're pitching him to the outside of the zone, and Tim will gladly take those balls to right field, sacrifice some power, and hit it over there. And it's just so many times that you see Tim's like just struggling to get to the upper fastball. And I think that's part of your thesis. Like, he's working at Driveline to eradicate that, because we saw him get kicked out of that one game where he bumped into the umpire last year, where the umpire called 2 high inside strikes. Tim was arguing those are not strikes. We saw the zone, and the zone might be off. They're strikes. And so I think he went to this offseason and said, if they're going to keep on calling those, I can't keep going getting mad at it. I got to be able to hit those, because they know I can cover the outside of the plate. Now they're coming into me like they do with Jose Abreu. I'm not taking too many hits by the pitch, so I need to take those balls that are in on my hands, anticipate them, and drive those to left field. And I know people are going to get on Tim Anderson for his defense, but majority of his errors, 7 of his 12 errors happened in a 6-game stretch. 5 versus the Guardians. I think 7 versus the Guardians, a couple versus the Twins, and then the Tigers. He made 9 of his 12 errors versus the Guardians specifically last year. So having fewer games versus the Guardians, Twins, Royals, and the Tigers will help him in that regard. And his defense, for the most part, after those bad April games, was negligible. It was pretty much a 0. He was fine. He ended up, I think, with a -2 outs above average at second base, his first negative year of that category since his first full year of starting in 2017. I think Tim just needs to hone in on the things he does poorly while crafting the things he does well. I think he's a above average fielder. I think he's a above average hitter, but I think he can take it to the next level, especially with the eyes of him, when he's tweeting, he's like, oh, people out here making more money, people out here signing extensions, people out here signing big time contracts as shortstops. I'm just as good as them. I would say you're not, but if you feel that way, take that stuff to heart, because Trey Turner's the same age as you are, and he's making much more money than you are right now. And I hope Tim is watching or listening to all the negativity that's going on this year, because, as I said before, he thrives off that stuff. And he will have a better year this year because he's been falling off the table since 2019 offensively. He was at his peak year in 2019. 2020, I'm going to throw it out. It's only 60 games. 2021, also a good year. Last year, a good year. But if you look at the WOBA, you look at the rated runs created plus, all have decreased since 2019, his apex of a year. And he played a lot of games that year. If he can get back to that year, which is not a big stretch, just health for him, he can get there, and he can be that all-star starting shortstop again, and he can be an MVP caliber player like he was in 2020.
Had more plate appearances in 2021 than he did in 2019. 551 to 518, and same amount of games, 123. But just at least to talk about the swinging percentage, and you talking about it being a little bit more selective, and you talking about that's how Tim became Tim. When Tim doesn't have a swing percentage above 55%, he doesn't have a weighted runs created plus above 110. The only times he's had a swinging percent under 55%, 2018, 2017, 2016, weighted runs created plus of 98, 79, and 85. I think it's I don't know where to go with, I think 2020 you can't throw out, because I think it's a short year, but I think he showed a very interesting profile. I mean, when you talked about the swings that he took in the heart of the zone, what really shows in 2019, 2021, and 2022 is that anything in the actual strike zone, Tim Anderson crushed, but he was willing to go out and make bad contact or swing and miss at pitches outside of the zone. But in 2020, he did a fantastic job of just keeping everything just about average. So even stuff out of the zone, he was able to turn into a positive, or at least be able to negate it. He was just able to cover the plate very, very well. Kevin, when you have those pictures, let me know. But I don't know. The big thing for Tim in 2022 is his BABIP was down. And I think what Driveline is going to hopefully help him do, and we'll talk about that in a sec, is just create more exit velocity and get back to that part where he is hitting more balls that are just over infielders' heads and right in front of the outfielders, right? Getting more consistent at-bats, where we saw early in the season where we're like, do teams even have a scouting report on Tim Anderson? Here's a fastball outside heart of the plate. He's going to take it right into the right field for a line drive single. I do think that Tim Anderson is still there. And you look at the BABIP, 2019, 399, 2020, 383, 2021, 372, 2022, 347. So that it completely.
Can you explain BABIP to our people, just who don't know?
A batting average on balls in play.
Okay.
And Tim Anderson being a person who is a person who puts a ton of balls in play. The swing percentage shows you that. The lack of a K rate shows you that. The lack of a walk rate shows you that. Or sorry, not the lack of a. Well, yeah, kind of the lack of a K rate. I mean, only a 15% K rate.
Yeah.
But that's the thing
Way
too.
down.
He started striking out less. I mean, he had 6% less strikeouts last year.
Yep.
So then he started just putting more balls into play by that fact. Tim Anderson isn't really going to be, walking. He's just either going to be putting the ball into play, striking out, or walking. But it's very rare.
Very rare. I would say that if you're not going to be that guy, you're not going to be the on-base guy, and you're not going to get to at least 350 on base, you got to go down in the order. You have to. You can't have a
Why
person
would
that's
you?
at 330.
So you're going to put Tim. You're going to when in the year would you move Tim Anderson off the leadoff spot?
If it's not happening after the first 2 months. It's a meritocracy. You have to earn it. You just don't stay there just because you are.
Herb, but here's the thing. You're talking about a baseball player, a faceless baseball player needs to have these numbers.
Yeah.
Tim Anderson needs to have Tim Anderson numbers and needs to do Tim Anderson things. Tim Anderson is the White Sox leadoff hitter. If you drop Tim Anderson in the batting order, the lineup is I don't want to say broken, but it is changed, and it is probably changed for the worse because he is the guy who brings that energy, that stuff that you're not going to be able to quantify. Like, I get what you're saying. You're saying, in a vacuum, my leadoff hitter, I don't care what his name is or what he looks like, I want my leadoff hitter to have these types of numbers. But you're not talking about in a vacuum. You're talking about a guy who has become, when he's healthy, one of the best players or one of the best hitters in baseball because what he can do in terms of producing a high average, getting on base, showing an occasional power from the way he does things. And it was Tim Anderson who developed this attitude change and developed this change in his game over that one offseason that turned him into a guy that's like, I'm going to go after every pitch that comes at me. I'm going to go after the pitcher. I'm going to take it to him. Being aggressive is what turned Tim Anderson into Tim Anderson. I think it is not only unrealistic to expect him to move away from that in a dramatic manner that makes him more like your stereotypical leadoff guy just because to fit him in a certain box. It is also probably detrimental because you want him to be successful in the way that he's able to be successful. And what he's shown over the course of several years, including the last couple of years when you're saying the numbers have dipped a bit, is by being that aggressive hitter who's going to swing at everything and take those balls to right field. By doing that, he has become a guy who can be a successful leadoff man for the White Sox. Plus, you take in those things you can't measure that he does that few other people can do. He is the perfect leadoff man for this White Sox team, not for any team in a vacuum or any team that doesn't have Tim Anderson, right? He is the perfect one for this team, and I think expecting him to change or asking him to change is probably ends up doing more harm than it does good in acquiring those certain skills that you're looking for from a stereotypical leadoff hitter.
But I think also that it's like you have to have progression. You have to, it's like, okay, I am this guy. What's the next move? How do I get from A to B? How do I improve my game? He doesn't have to be a different player. Like I said, he can just go back to the 2019 year where he's putting up good-ass numbers, 2020 year where he's putting up actual good numbers, getting on base 36% of the time. Those numbers are not unrealistic to ask for him. Not maybe via the walk, but hitting more. If he hits more, if he hits almost 340, I can deal with his lower on-base percentage. But a leadoff hitter, yes, Tim does set the table. He set the table by getting on base. Last year, he didn't get on base as much as a leadoff hitter should in the major leagues. And so run production for him and the whole team went down. It's on Tim. If he wants to put it on himself and he wants to be that guy, it's on him to establish back to what 2019 was. I'm on base. I'm stealing a couple of bags, especially with the lack of throws over with the new rules. And I'm going to be setting the table for an offense that's going to be much more dynamic than it was in the past because we're going to be more healthy. And I'm on base. That means we're going to be scoring much more runs. And our problem last year was scoring runs, mostly because I was not on base.
The first 40 games of 2022, Tim Anderson had an OPS of 896.
Maybe.
The White Sox had a record of 20-20. After Tim Anderson hit the IL in May and returned in June 20 and finished the season on August 6 with his finger injury. What was it again? Whatever it was.
Yeah, tore a ligament in his finger, I want to say.
It was a specific
Ouchie.
name.
Yeah.
Yes. In those 39 games, the White Sox record was 22-17. Tim Anderson, again, in the first 40 games, had an OPS of 896. In this 39-game stretch where the White Sox went 22-17, Tim Anderson had a 576 OPS. Tim Anderson at the top of the order was horrible, and the White Sox won more games when he was horrible than not. I think
it's a pretty small sample
right,
size.
And not apples to apples.
But it is the same sample size, and I understand that it's like, it's about the 9 players, but Tim Anderson is Tim Anderson. He sets the example. And I don't think Tim Anderson has any different attitude that's not going to, Tim Anderson knows he can't perform like that, right? Like, I don't know. Like, Tim's going to push Tim. I feel like Tim is baseball's a weird sport. It's kind of an individual sport, but it's also a team sport. I feel like Tim is kind of like a tennis player, and he just is focused in on doing his job and doing his job of hitting. And I think that, we've seen how he takes slights before. I think that he's probably upset with the way that last year ended, not being able to finish out 2022. And he seems to be motivated by financial reasons. Like, I don't know. I think that's a guy that can set an example, and we'll take a break here. But I think for 2023, you talk about him being the most important hitter for the White Sox. I think he has to be the most important hitter, because if he's there for 600 games, like, that's what's most important for Tim Anderson. Like, if he has that health, I know he's going to be able to post because his body's going to allow him to do that. But it felt like last year, dealing with the groin injury that put him on the IL late in May, and then obviously the hand injury that knocked him out, like, I just think that he's probably extremely motivated to come out and give you another all-star year. I don't think he wants the accolades to stop coming. Like, this is a guy that is extremely motivated, and he's like the last guy that I would question on this team now that Pito's gone.
Mm-hmm. And just before we go to the break, I think that he's going to have a good 2023, partly because he played so poorly versus the division last year. Like, they had the most games versus the other teams in the division, of course. This year, it's 12 each. And so Tim Anderson versus the Guardians, 11 games, 645 OPS. The only team he had a really high OPS plus or OPS against was the Tigers, but he only played 4 games versus them. He had 1,000 OPS. The other two teams, 10 games each, 580 versus Twins and 725 versus the Royals. So fewer games with the teams inside the division who, get to know you a little bit more, know where your weaknesses are a little bit more. I think will also benefit for Tim playing other teams around the league who haven't seen him. Will be throwing them an outside fastball, thinking you can get him out of there.
You mentioned the incident with Nick Marley as well back on July 30th, and I thought it was interesting. I didn't actually have this in my thesis or whatever you described it as. Yes. But Kevin, if you want to show that that weird red and yellow graph. There,
I'm trying to get some stuff up. ECam it's frozen.
You're all good. It looked like
graphics.
You had it done, so I was going to go to it. We'll take a quick break now and let you know about Goose Island. Vinny, how's the Goose Island tasting over there?
Just splendid.
Rocking the 312.
The classic.
CHGO.
My mom calls it 312.
312. CHGO supported by Goose Island Beer, Chicago's beer since 1988. Their beer roster includes the 312, the Golden Wheat, or Urban Wheat Ale. Urban Wheat Ale with the Goose on it. You have the Blackhawks Pale Ale, the limited release. You have the Bulls City 312, the limited release. Herb's holding the No Plans Tasty Time Pale Ale. That's got 5.6 AAV on it. It's also the Bourbon County Stout. You can find that at a 4-pack at Binnie's. You can find them in the Solos as well at the Jewels still, if you're lucky.
Drank a Neon beer hug last night at the game.
It was a huge
it's like
tall boy, too.
19-ounce drink. Delicious.
Very nice.
7% alcohol. Perfect for a basketball game.
They got the 9.9s as well in the Beer Hug IPA series. You got the Green Line, the Matilda, the Sophies. Amazing, amazing beer choices from Goose Island. And their 2 local locations are open and ready to welcome you. So grab a beer from their innovative tanks at Goose Island's Tap Room at 1800 West Fulton, or get a smash burger and fresh beer of the week at the original Clybourne Brewhouse at 1800 North Clybourne. For reservations and pickup, go to gooseisland.com/locations. Goose Island Beer Company. That's top of the lineup right there. I mean, who's setting the lineup then? If this is a Goose Island batting order, who's your Goose Island leadoff hitter?
Reliable.
I think you want consistency at the top, right? So you're going to have to go with 3-1-2.
Yeah,
that's the TA of Goose beers over here.
Yeah.
I think that Bourbon County is either a 3 or 4 hitter.
Yeah, that one get you loaded.
Mm-hmm. It'll be nice. It's nice and smooth.
Very
set off the fireworks at the rate.
Mercy.
That Tasty Time is like an Oscar Colas.
Well,
new, that no plans. New, has a big time potential, and has the potential to hit 40 home runs. That's my favorite beer of theirs.
Mercy.
I love it.
I was just thinking maybe like Wade Boggs could probably pound like 10 to 15 Bourbon County stouts.
He ate chicken every game.
And drank 99 beers on that plane.
That is the best Always Sunny episode, by the way. If you guys haven't seen that.
Yeah.
What's
drinking 70 beers on a cross-country flight.
I'm kidding. I've seen it. It's a terrible show.
So, Kevin, do we have that, or is it no?
So Ecamm is just not letting me flash any graphics. Apologize.
But we
At
saw
all?
it ourselves. Though.
None.
Oh, okay.
I know the
I have them in there, but it won't pop up. So.
All right.
Love technical difficulties.
All cool. So at least with your point on the Nick Marley stuff and the inside fastballs, in 2020, and I know, again, it was a very minor year, but on inside fastballs, especially that would be the chest up, so the two zones, basically, if there's 4 zones making up the strike zone, the top 2, Tim swing percentage was 100% and 93%.
Jesus.
In 2021, it was about 60% in both of them, and then last year was about 40%. So I don't think he's seeing that pitch well enough, or there's definitely some issue with the up and in fastball that Tim was struggling with in 2022. So there was definitely that stuff that you maybe look into, and that was there. So
he needs to stop bumping to umpires 2 years in a row.
Yes.
Stop it. They don't like it.
No, they don't like it when you touch them.
No.
So I do want to go to some stuff for Driveline. So we do know Tim Anderson back in November was in Seattle at the Driveline facilities, and the idea with Driveline is trying to create more bat velocity. It's the same with pitching and hitting. It's all about max effort, max velocity, and it's trying to take your mechanics and make it the easiest, most powerful, most efficient mechanics that you can have to create the most power. Nolan Arenado has gone there for the past 2 years. Lars Nootbaar of the Cardinals as well has seen some fantastic results from Driveline, and now we see Tim Anderson going there. And the assumption would be gaining velocity. And I did want to see how it helped Nolan Arenado, and Arenado's run value versus the fastball by year. We'll just go to 2019 to 2022. Positive 9 run value against fastballs in 2019, -2 run value in 2020. Then he started going to Driveline, positive 3 run value in 2021, positive 12 run value in 2022. Arenado had a massive year for the Cardinals last year.
Nolan Arenado, good.
Nolan Arenado, good.
Yes.
Yes. Tim Anderson also on Team USA because good.
Yeah.
2019 run value versus fastball -1. 2020, that fantastic year, +6. 2021, another fantastic year, +5. Last year, -3 run value. So Tim Anderson obviously has been up and down his entire career against the fastball. I think it is possible that he's looking to gain consistency against that pitch, gain that bat speed that he can rely on to get to those pitches no matter where they are in the zone, because we know Tim has fantastic plate coverage. Then going to Arenado's year-by-year changes, just looking at exit velocity and what the work is trying to do. His max exit velocity has improved since 2020. In 2020, it was 108.9. 2021, it was 110.6, and in 2022, it was 111.4. You're trying to gain as much velocity as possible. You're trying to add distance, and what Driveline has been able to study, and this was specifically in Lars Nootbaar's study, is that 1 mile of bat speed equals 1.2 miles per hour of exit velocity, and that equates to about 7 feet of distance. 5 miles per hour of bat speed equals about 6 miles per hour of exit velocity, which would then equal about 35 feet of difference. So you're basically, if you're adding more bat speed, you're just adding more distance. And Tim, I think what he's struggled with is pull side home runs and pull side power. In 2019 and 2020, he was pulling the ball down the line with massive success, doubles, home runs. And in 2021, he saw a little bit more of a balanced approach going to all fields. And I don't know if that was Frank Minichino directed or not. We knew that he wanted to have the White Sox show power to all fields. But in 2022, Tim was really lacking of power. We see the ISO being under 1.
Yep.
The slugging minus the average. Tim wasn't able to drive the ball a ton, and he really wasn't pulling the ball. A lot of his power was to left center field, and it really isn't a spot where you're a 6'1" shortstop you want to be hitting. So I think Tim's main work here at Driveline is going to try to be adding bat speed and then trying to be able to turn on pitches so he's able to get back to driving the ball. And I think we're probably aiming for 20 home runs. We're probably trying to aim for where he was in 2019, where he hit, I think, 19 that campaign. Obviously, it's a different baseball, but I think Tim Anderson thinks that he can probably push himself a little bit harder. At some of these Driveline facilities, they talk about reaching a threshold for velocity and just having to push past it. Tim Anderson might be at a part where, right now he's at a certain level of being an athlete, and he's just got to try to work and push past that. And we see work today on his Instagram, still in the cages with a certain harness that I think is specified for core and rotation, still working on these drills. And I think this is a huge thing for Tim, trying to gain that bat speed and trying to add more power to his swing. There we go.
Yeah, the sound of that bat crack always sounds great, especially in February.
Yeah, one of the guys muttering, "Fuck yeah, Tim."
He's very happy. I mean, this is the progression I'm talking about. Like, he can see his game maybe plateauing, seeing it, or going down a little bit slightly, where he was an all-star last year, the starting shortstop for the American League. But it's good to go and get some independent help from somebody else that can see your swing and improve it and get you more at-bats and more hard-hit contact. Me and Sean were going through the batted ball profile. Fangraphs has a batted ball profile where in 2021, Tim was hitting the ball hard hit contact. And they have 3 categories in the Fangraphs: soft, medium, and hard. 33% in 2021. It went down to 27% in 2022. So I don't know where that power drained from. I mean, we was dealing with a finger injury, a wrist injury, where some of that power can come from. Your hands are the most important thing you have as a Major League Baseball player. So he's just trying to intensify and work on the things that he can do better, and that's good to see because he sees all these people passing him by. He sees Dansby Swanson, who was just a mostly glove-first guy his first couple years, turn into an offensive monster the last couple of years and sign a big-ass contract. I'm sure he looked at Dansby Swanson more than the other 3 who signed big-time free agent contracts this offseason saying, I'm more of him than I am of Bogarts, Turner, or Correa. I can get to there. If I can get to 25-plus home runs, which I think Dansby Swanson did the last 2 years, I'm going to get broke off real proper. So that's what I need to do. 5 home runs is not Tim Anderson, even if it is under 100 games. That's not Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson is more, 15 to 20 home runs, and I think he can hit 20 home runs this year, especially with the numbers I stated. No amount of games versus the same people in the division that got your swing down and got your scouting report down. You get to open it up to teams like the Miami Marlins, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Cincinnati Reds a little bit more and get a couple more hits and home runs. I think Tim's in for a great year, and I'm glad you put those numbers out there because it does shine a light on what he's doing up there in Driveline, and the Nolan Arenado thing really, really gets me excited for that because if he's anywhere close to what Nolan Arenado did in that improvement, he's going to have a fantastic 2023.
Well, and the other thing, too, barrel percentage, Tim was at about 10% in 2020 and about a 7% in 2021. In 2022 is around a 5%, and Arenado has seen increases over 2021 and 2022, reaching a career high this year at 8.9%. So hopefully, again, making great contact with the barrel of the ball and having the bat being faster than it's ever been, just sounds like good things, right? The bat's going faster, it's hitting the ball cleaner, good things hopefully for TA.
Well, and here's the thing. Obviously, TA needs to, get those numbers back to where they were over the last few years. I think he should be expected to hit over 20 home runs. If he doesn't hit 20 home runs, that's probably not him fulfilling his potential because he's a guy who should be able to do that. He has the power. He's shown it before. But let's forget about all those numbers for a sec because I think just like if Tim Anderson has a very productive season, that's a huge deal for the White Sox. If Tim Anderson is Tim Anderson, the guy, this season, that's a huge deal for the White Sox. Right. He doesn't need to only get back to getting some of those batting average numbers and those on-base percentage numbers up. He needs to get back to standing on the top step of the dugout and yelling at somebody over on second base. He needs to get back to, being the guy who Lucas Giolito told me a couple summers ago he couldn't envision him shutting up for more than, 5 seconds at a time. TA needs to be, everybody uses the word leader and they expect a different thing for that word to mean a different thing for every person who thinks about it. For Tim Anderson, being a leader means being energetic, means having that chip on your shoulder, being aggressive in your personality, being confident, not just aggressive at the plate with swinging the bat, but aggressive with your personality. I think when Tim Anderson is acting like Tim Anderson, that means things are going well for the White Sox. He was the most visible person last year that you could tell was not acting the same way because of the way the team was playing. And you can say chicken or the egg, certainly. That was a question all year long from everybody who was chatting with us all season long. But I heard so often last year from the guys in the clubhouse, man, it's no fun to lose, and it's hard for us to get that attitude back, that swagger back if we can't put the wins together. If Tim Anderson goes out, hits like we know he can hit, and the White Sox start winning some games, then he's going to be the guy, Tim Anderson, who the White Sox need him to be. I'm not saying the White Sox, they benefit from him, or it's a nice thing that they have him being that guy. They need him to be that guy to bring an attitude to this team that gets back to they think they can beat anybody, because Tim Anderson says that all the time. He talks about being the guy who, and it doesn't matter who's on the mound, he's going to beat him. And I think every person on that White Sox team had that attitude for a bit. They very clearly didn't have it last year. If they can get back to that with Tim Anderson driving the bus on that, then they're going to be in a much better place, and they're going to have a much easier time reaching that potential that everybody thought they were going to reach last year, and they very much didn't.
They were fun in 2020 because of Tim Anderson. They were fun in 2021 because of Tim Anderson. They weren't fun in 2022 because Tim Anderson wasn't there for the last part of the year, and the team just completely fell off the train, and they were up and down without him in May and June. And I just, him being back hopefully will make the White Sox more fun. We saw Billy Hamilton be elevated to Billy the Hitter because of Tim Anderson's vibe and his kind of leadership in that sort of way. Hopefully, Pedro Grifol can bring some of that out, as Jordan is saying in the chat. Maybe Pedro and Mike Tozar and the whole gang can create good vibes, and that'd be great for the White Sox all around. So
before we leave, I think the one thing that we have to state is that Tim is relatively young in his baseball career. He's 29 years old as a human being, but he started playing baseball, a junior year or resumed playing baseball in his junior year after a basketball injury. So, everybody else in the major leagues has pretty much played baseball since Little League and consistently. Tim is relatively young in playing baseball. Doesn't have the baseball wherewithal like everybody else has as a 29-year-old. And so he's trying different things. He's trying to improve himself, and I think he has a bunch of room to grow as opposed to other people where they're pretty much stuck in their position. I think Tim can be whoever he wants to be. If he wants to be a 25-plus home run hitter guy, he can be that, and he could sacrifice some of those strikeouts because, you said, the strikeout rate was really low last year. So I wouldn't mind a 20-25% strikeout rate if you're going to be knocking the ball over the fence 25 times a year. So I think he has so much room to grow because he is such a baby in infancy of his baseball career, even though, he'll probably be out of the league in 10 more years. But I think there's a lot of incentive there. We saw with the growth from 2016 to 17, 18 to 19, from 18 to 19, day and night. So I think the guy can do it again. 18 was pretty much a disappointing year. 19 is coming out party. I think most people would say that 2022 overall for the White Sox and for Tim Anderson, disappointing year, and he has something to prove this year.
Yeah, I think the White Sox as a whole can just afford to strike out more. Their best year in the past 3 seasons was with their highest strikeout rate in 2020. It was 60 games, but 25% K rate and 111 weighted runs created plus with all those home runs. Become a 3 true outcome team rather than, let's not walk, let's strike out less than we have in the past, 2 seasons, and let's put more balls in play. That only works if you're fast, and the White Sox are, a power team. So, selling out for a bit more power for not only TA might be, an emphasis for a lot of these players.
It should be good. It should be, and I hope Chris Johnson, who was a semi-powerful hitter in his time, is preaching that. Look for your pitch. Look for it in the zone and drive it. Do not miss it. Do not miss 2-0 fastballs. Do not miss 3-1 fastballs. Do not miss hanging sliders in the middle of the zone, which I think Tim missed a couple of them where it's and look, not just Tim, and we're just talking about Tim today, but there's a lot of hanging pitches in the middle of the zone that, you would see, and I would do my Hawk impressions like, you just missed it, and then he hit the ball to mid left field and such. And so this is the year for many people to prove themselves, especially Tim Anderson. And as Vinnie says, as everybody says, he's the one. He's the guy. He's the most important player on the White Sox offensively, I think, to make this team go in 2023.
All right. That should do it for today's podcast. We do got to let you know, for all those out there, if you're not a diehard yet, tomorrow at 8 p.m. we're going to have a CHGO happy hour, and it's the first White Sox one. Come hang out with us. The link will be shared in Discord, but also if you go to All CHGO, you will be able to click on the diehard page, and then there should be an event spot where you should be able to click on the Zoom link and join us there if you are a diehard. And it should be fun. It's kind of an open forum where you just get to chat with us for about an hour. You know, if you want to talk Tim Anderson and, you know, him selling out for power, albeit.
But if you're not a diehard yet, you're listening to this, watching this, go to All CHGO right there on the homepage. Click to be a diehard with us. You can join us in the Discord lounge, or you can join us tomorrow night for our special happy hour. We'll be drinking some delicious Goose Island. I'll be drinking a lot of it.
Yeah?
So you might get some stories out of me tomorrow, guys.
Mercy. All right.
Some 7%.
It's only an hour long,
Some
Herb.
9.5. I might be drinking before, guys.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I'll tell you what.
we get off at 5 tomorrow, and then Herb is going to pregame the happy hour with a couple happy hours.
3 hours worth.
Why not?
There you go.
Happy hours, plural.
Yeah. What's 9 times 2 times 3? I'm assuming you're going to be drinking 9%.
Oh, no.
Two an hour times 3.
I'm going to stay with the neon beer hugs at 7s.
Herb's going to be at about what? I think 54% alcohol level once the happy hour starts, if my math is correct. Anyways, that's going to do it for the CHGO White Sox podcast. Again, if you do want to become a diehard, go to allchgo.com to level up your fandom. That's Vinnie Duber. You can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Duber and find his work at allchgo.com. He has a brand new piece up with quotes from Justin Jerschley, and it's all laid out very nicely, prospect by prospect. So if you want to read about Colson Montgomery, Oscar Colas, Sean Burke, Jose Rodriguez, it's all there for you at allchgo.com. That's Herb Lawrence. You're about to say hello again?
It's like a parrot.
Yeah. You can follow him on Twitter at Actonroll23. He's our CHGO White Sox community leader. I'm Sean Anderson. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_W_Anderson.
Thank you to Pavlovian's dog.
Thank you to Kevin Wells for producing this show. And hit the like button on your way out. It does mean a ton to us. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another CHGO Live White Sox podcast.